I'm Anna Thompson, 25 years old, a freelance painter living in a modest Brooklyn apartment. My Uncle Williams, while reading The Thompson Family, Titans of the Hotel and Stock Market Empire, laughed in my face when I was bequeathed just $10. They've always scorned my passion for painting, dismissing it as a childish hobby. My cousin David, the smug CEO of Thompson Hotels, mocked me, suggesting I buy a fancy coffee with my inheritance. My cousin Emily, an investment analyst, gave me a pitying look, while Aunt Susan, who never stops bragging about the family's status, declared I'd squandered the Thompson legacy. Only Uncle William was different. When I was 13, he gifted me a set of high-end paintbrushes, sparking my artistic journey. I'd catch glimpses of him at my gallery exhibitions, always slipping away before I could approach, his presence a quiet, unspoken support in a family that never understood me. If you're still listening, we want to sincerely thank you for spending your time with us. Truly means a lot. We'd love to know, where in the world are you watching from? Drop your country in the comments and let's see how far this message has reached. If you haven't subscribed to the channel yet, I highly recommend doing it now so you won't miss any of our upcoming stories. These aren't just ordinary stories, they're filled with meaningful life lessons that can inspire, teach, and stay with you long after the video ends. Hit that subscribe button and join our growing community. After the humiliating will reading, as I stood on the verge of fleeing the suffocating room filled with my family's mocking laughter, Mr. Harris, the lawyer, gently pulled me aside. His expression was unreadable, but his voice carried a quiet urgency. He handed me a sealed envelope, its wax seal embossed with Uncle William's distinctive ring insignia, a symbol I'd seen on his desk during rare visits to his office. My hands trembled as I broke the seal, half expecting some final condescending note. Instead, the letter unveiled a staggering truth. I, Anna Thompson, was Uncle William's primary heir. I inherited 80% of his estate, $320 million, controlling shares in Thompson Hotels and a secret Manhattan penthouse. My heart raced as I read on. Under the pseudonym James Carter, Uncle William had been silently purchasing nearly every painting I'd ever sold at galleries. His penthouse, unknown to the rest of the family, was a private museum dedicated to my artistic journey, each piece meticulously framed and displayed. $10 bequest, he explained, was a deliberate ruse. It was designed to shield me from the family's greed and manipulation, ensuring they'd reveal their true colors without knowing the real stakes. And they did. David's cruel jests, Emily's patronizing pity, Aunt Susan's smug judgment. Uncle William wrote that he'd seen how the Thompson family's obsession with wealth warped their values, turning relationships into transactions. He called it wealth sickness and believed I'd escaped it by choosing art over ambition. His faith in me wasn't just words, it was a calculated plan to expose their hypocrisy while empowering me to forge my own path. The letter ended with a plea, to use this wealth not as a cage, but as a tool to create something meaningful. Stepping into the penthouse for the first time was surreal. Mr. Harris accompanied me, unlocking a private elevator in a historic Manhattan brownstone. The doors opened to a breathtaking space, vaulted ceilings, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Central Park, and walls lined with my paintings. From my clumsy early works to my latest series, every piece was there, lit with care, some accompanied by Uncle William's handwritten notes praising my use of color or emotion. In a corner, I found a hidden portfolio containing his own artwork, vivid oil paintings of 1970s New York, capturing street vendors, jazz musicians, and quiet moments in forgotten neighborhoods. He'd been an artist too, but the Thompson family's expectations had forced him to bury that part of himself. His secret support of my career was his way of living vicariously through me. What shook me most was a discovery Mr. Harris revealed. Uncle William had installed a discreet camera in the conference room during the will reading. The footage, which he left for me, captured my family's unfiltered reactions after I received the $10. As I walked toward the door, David leaned toward Aunt Susan, whispering about how they could divide the real assets now that I was out of the picture. Emily stayed silent but smirked. The betrayal stung, but it also freed me. I saw them for who they were, people who valued money over family, who laughed at my dreams while plotting their own gain. Determined to honor Uncle William's vision, I decided to transform his gift into something bigger than myself. I purchased an old warehouse in Brooklyn's Dumbo Arts District and turned it into the Anna Thompson Gallery, a space for emerging artists like me who lacked connections or resources. The gallery wasn't just for exhibitions. It included free studios, workshops, and darkrooms to foster creativity. I restructured the Thompson Foundation, shifting its focus from safe donations to elite museums to funding art education in underserved communities, scholarships for young painters, and grants for struggling creatives. It was my way of giving others the chance Uncle William had given me. The family's reaction came swiftly once the SEC filings revealed my inheritance. Aunt Susan called, her voice dripping with false sweetness, suggesting a family meeting to discuss misunderstandings about Uncle William's wishes. David tried a different tactic, hiring a private investigator to dig into my life, hoping to find leverage. The investigator found nothing but my modest existence as a painter, which only frustrated him more. Emily was the exception. One rainy afternoon, she showed up at my apartment, her eyes red. "I was jealous," she admitted. "You had the guts to follow your heart. I just followed the family script." Her honesty cracked the wall between us, and slowly we began rebuilding a relationship, not as Thompson heirs, but as cousins finding common ground. Stepping into Uncle William's secret penthouse felt like entering a dream. Private elevator opened to a sprawling Manhattan loft, its soaring ceilings and floor-to-ceiling windows framing a glittering view of Central Park. But it was the walls that stopped me cold, covered with my paintings, each one meticulously framed and bathed in soft, curated lighting. From my awkward teenage sketches to my bold recent series on urban solitude, every piece of my artistic journey was there, preserved like treasures. Besides several hung Uncle William's handwritten notes, his elegant script praising my use of shadow or the raw emotion in a brushstroke. I ran my fingers over the words, my throat tightening. He hadn't just supported me, he'd studied me, cherished every step of my growth. Then I found his secret. Tucked in a corner was a locked wooden chest Mr. Harris opened for me. Inside were Uncle William's own paintings, stunning portraits of 1970s New York, capturing gritty street markets, laughing children in Harlem, and weary subway riders under flickering lights. His brushwork was masterful, alive with empathy, yet he'd hidden this talent, buried under the weight of the Thompson family's expectations to prioritize profit over passion. I realized then that his covert support of my art was more than kindness. It was his way of reclaiming the creative life he'd sacrificed. What chilled me to the bone was a USB drive Mr. Harris handed me, labeled simply "Will Reading." Uncle William had installed a hidden camera in the conference room, capturing every word and smirk after my $10 bequest was announced. I watched the footage alone in the penthouse, my stomach churning. As I'd walk toward the door, humiliated, David leaned toward Aunt Susan, whispering, "With her out of the way, we can split the hotels and stocks cleanly." Aunt Susan nodded, her lips curling. "She'll never contest it with that pathetic $10. Emily stayed quiet, but her fleeting smirk betrayed her. The video was Uncle William's final gift, a raw, unfiltered look at my family's greed, confirming I owed them nothing. That truth fueled my next steps. I poured the inheritance into creating the Anna Thompson Gallery, buying an old warehouse in Brooklyn's Dumbo Arts District. It wasn't just a showroom. I transformed it into a vibrant hub with free studios, darkrooms, and workshops for young artists who, like me, had talent but no connections. The opening night drew a crowd, gritty painters, starry-eyed students, even a few curious collectors. I felt Uncle William's presence in every corner, his belief in me now a beacon for others. I also restructured the Thompson Foundation, redirecting its focus from funding prestigious museums to supporting art education in underserved neighborhoods. I launched scholarships for kids in places like the South Bronx, where creativity often drowns under poverty's weight. I hired local artists to teach free classes, their passion reminding me of my own early days, scraping by on cheap canvases. One scholarship recipient, a 16-year-old named Mia, sent me a painting of her grandmother's hands, worn but strong. Now hangs in my office, a reminder of why I'm doing this. The family's reaction came like clockwork once the SEC filings exposed my inheritance. Aunt Susan's first call was a masterclass in fake warmth, suggesting a family summit to clarify Uncle William's intentions. David took a darker route, hiring a private investigator to tail me, hoping to unearth some scandal to challenge the will. PI's report, which Mr. Harris intercepted, was laughably empty, just photos of me buying paint or sketching in Prospect Park. Emily was different. One rainy evening, she showed up at my gallery, soaked and vulnerable. "I envied you," she confessed, her voice breaking. "You broke free. I'm still trapped in their game." Her honesty disarmed me, and we started meeting for coffee, slowly rebuilding a bond beyond the Thompson name. I kept the $10 check, framed it, and hung it in my new studio at the penthouse, a reminder that worth isn't measured in dollars. Every day, I walked past my paintings and Uncle William's, their colors blending into a shared legacy. I wasn't just the family outcast anymore. I was the underdog who'd outsmarted them all, turning their laughter into a rallying cry. They thought they'd won when they mocked me. But Uncle William's plan ensured they'd been exposed, and I'd gotten the last laugh. Inspired by Uncle William's vivid paintings of everyday New York life, I launched a community arts program through the Anna Thompson Gallery. It offered free workshops for kids in struggling neighborhoods like the South Bronx and Bed-Stuy, where creativity often takes a backseat to survival. I hired local artists to teach painting, sculpting, and even mural making, watching children light up as they discovered their own voices on canvas. One 14-year-old boy, Javier, painted a mural of his bodega-lined street, its colors bold yet tender, a scene Uncle William would have loved. Those workshops became my heart's work, a way to extend the freedom he'd given me to others who needed it. But the Thompson family wouldn't let me breathe easy. Once the SEC filings exposed my $320 million inheritance and control of Thompson hotels, their masks dropped further. Aunt Susan's calls turned syrupy, inviting me to family dinners to discuss our shared legacy. Her voice barely hid her desperation to claw back influence. David went uglier, threatening legal action to contest the will, claiming Uncle William wasn't of sound mind. When that failed, he hired a private investigator to dig into my life, hoping to uncover some scandal, maybe a secret affair or financial misstep. PI's report, which Mr. Harris discreetly obtained, was almost comical. Photos of me sketching in a cafe, buying groceries, or teaching a workshop. I'd lived too honestly for their dirty tactics to work. David's frustration only grew, his texts shifting from threats to oily offers of partnership in the company. Emily was the outlier. One chilly evening, she appeared at the gallery, her coat damp from Brooklyn rain. "I was jealous of you, Anna," she admitted, her voice raw. "You defied the family, chased your art. I just followed their rules and I'm miserable." Her confession hit me hard. I'd always seen her as the perfect Thompson, with her sleek suits and corner office. But that night, I saw a woman trapped by expectations, just as Uncle William once was. We started meeting regularly, swapping stories over coffee in Dumbo cafes. Slowly, we rebuilt something real, not as heirs to a fortune, but as two women trying to carve out identities beyond the Thompson shadow. She even joined a workshop, timidly painting for the first time since childhood, her hands shaking but her smile genuine. The pressure from the family didn't stop, though. Aunt Susan tried a new angle, hosting a lavish memorial for Uncle William, clearly a stage to reassert her matriarchal role. I attended, dressed in a simple but sharp blazer bought with my new wealth, and watched their power plays unfold. David cornered me by the dessert table, his fake grin masking panic. "You're in over your head, Anna. Let me help run the company. You're an artist, not a CEO." I smiled, sipping my wine. Uncle William thought I could handle it. Maybe he saw something you don't. Aunt Susan pulled me aside later, her tone icy. Secrets don't stay hidden, Anna. Whatever you're planning, we'll find out. I met her gaze. Maybe you should look at your own secrets first, Aunt Susan. A flicker of unease crossed her face, something I'd later learn tied to her own shady deals within the company. Through it all, I leaned on Mr. Harris and Patricia Reynolds, my no-nonsense financial advisor. Patricia helped me navigate the labyrinth of assets, hotels in Miami, stocks in tech firms, even a vineyard in Napa. She urged me to take it slow, but I was already studying business basics at night, determined to understand the empire I now owned. Penthouse became my sanctuary, where I painted late into the night, surrounded by Uncle William's and my own works. That $10 check, now framed above my easel, wasn't a joke anymore, it was a badge of my resilience. Emily's transformation inspired me most. One day, she quit her analyst job, enrolling in an art history course. "You showed me it's not too late," she said, her eyes bright. Our bond grew stronger, a quiet rebellion against the family's legacy of control. Meanwhile, David and Aunt Susan's schemes fizzled, their influence waning as I solidified my role at Thompson Hotels, not as a daily manager but as a visionary steering its charitable arm. I was no longer the outcast. I was the one rewriting the rules. At a charity event for the arts, I met Ryan, a sharp-witted editor for an indie art magazine. His first question wasn't about my paintings or the Thompson name, but a blunt, "So, what are you doing with all that money that actually matters?" His disregard for my family's prestige was refreshing, his eyes sparking with genuine curiosity. We talked for hours, debating art's role in society, his passion matching mine in a way that felt rare and real. His sincerity stirred something in me, a flicker of connection I hadn't expected. Over the next few months, we grew close, meeting at hole-in-the-wall galleries or quiet Brooklyn cafes. Ryan's world was one of late-night deadlines and worn notebooks, far from the Thompson Empire's glitz. After 3 months of dating, I invited him to the penthouse, my heart pounding as I prepared to reveal the truth about my inheritance. As he stepped inside, taking in the walls of my paintings and Uncle William's, I braced for a shift in his demeanor. Instead, he studied a portrait I'd painted of a Coney Island vendor, then turned to me with a grin. "This place is incredible, Anna, but it doesn't change how I see you." I confessed everything, the $320 million, the Thompson Hotel shares, the secret penthouse. Ryan listened, unfazed, then said, "I'm not here for your money. I've got my own hustle and I like it that way. You get that, don't you?" His insistence on independence mirrored my own journey, scraping by as a painter before Uncle William's gift. It was a relief to find someone who valued me for me, not the wealth I'd stumbled into. Our relationship deepened, grounded in shared values, his presence a steady anchor as I navigated my new reality. A year after Uncle William's passing, I stood in the Anna Thompson Gallery, heart racing as I prepared to unveil William Thompson, the hidden brush. The transformed Dumbo warehouse buzzed with anticipation, its walls showcasing Uncle William's stunning 1970s paintings, gritty New York scenes of jazz clubs, street vendors, and weary commuters, each stroke pulsing with empathy and skill. Alongside them hung my own works, bold explorations of identity and urban life, and pieces by young artists supported by the Thompson Foundation's grants. The exhibition was a bridge across generations, connecting Uncle William's hidden passion, my established voice, and the raw energy of emerging talents. The opening night drew a crowd, art critics scribbling notes, collectors eyeing purchases, and local kids from my workshops beaming with pride. The Boston Globe called Uncle William's work a revelation, a tycoon's secret soul laid bare through paint. The buzz wasn't just about the art. It was the story, a business magnate who'd lived a double life as an artist, choosing his outcast niece to carry his legacy. I felt him in the room, his quiet pride in every glance at his canvases. Aunt Susan arrived, her navy dress impeccable, her eyes scanning the gallery with a mix of awe and unease. For the first time, she approached me without her usual air of superiority. "Anna," she said, her voice softer than I'd ever heard, "I didn't know William had this in him. Maybe he saw something in you we all missed." It wasn't an apology, but it was close, an acknowledgement that Uncle William's choice of me as his heir made sense. I nodded, keeping my guard up. "He saw more than most," I replied, leaving it at that. David showed up late, his new fiancée, a polished finance exec, clinging to his arm. He played the part of supportive cousin, complimenting the gallery with a strained smile, but his eyes betrayed him, darting nervously as if calculating what my success meant for his own ambitions. "Nice setup, Anna," he said too casually. "You've done well for yourself." I caught the edge in his voice, the same one from the will reading when he'd mocked my $10. "Thanks, David," I said coolly. "Uncle William gave me a good foundation." His jaw tightened, and I knew he suspected I was holding all the cards now. The Thompson Foundation's young artists stole the show. A 17-year-old painter, Lila, whose scholarship I'd funded, presented a vibrant canvas of her Lower East Side neighborhood, earning gasps from the crowd. I saw myself in her, hungry for expression, unpolished but fearless. Critics swarmed, collectors made offers, and every sale went back to the foundation, fueling more opportunities. The night felt like a triumph, not just for me but for Uncle William's vision of art as a force for truth and connection. In the weeks leading up to the event, I'd found more of Uncle William's secrets. A locked drawer in the penthouse held a journal, its pages filled with reflections on his art and regrets for hiding it. One entry read, "Anna's work reminds me of the man I might have been had I chosen courage over duty." Broke my heart but also steeled my resolve. I wasn't just honoring his paintings. I was living the life he'd wanted but couldn't fully claim. The family dynamics had shifted in the year since the will reading. Emily, now taking art classes and exploring her own path, stood by me during the opening, her presence a quiet support. We'd grown close, our conversations no longer about family politics but about dreams and doubts. David and Aunt Susan, however, kept scheming. Mr. Harris warned me of whispers they were rallying minor shareholders to challenge my control of Thompson hotels. I wasn't worried, Uncle William's legal team had built an ironclad will, but it reminded me to stay vigilant. As the evening wound down, I stepped outside, the Brooklyn skyline sparkling under a crisp autumn sky. $10 check, framed in my studio, flashed in my mind, a symbol of how far I'd come. Uncle William hadn't just given me wealth. He'd given me the chance to redefine the Thompson legacy. The exhibition wasn't about revenge, though the irony of my family's stunned faces was sweet. It was about proving that art, authenticity, and compassion could outshine greed. I wasn't the outcast anymore. I was Anna Thompson, painter, philanthropist, and the keeper of Uncle William's hidden brush. As I prepared for the William Thompson, the Hidden Brush exhibition, I stumbled upon a weathered wooden box tucked away in a corner of the Manhattan penthouse. Its brass lock was engraved with Uncle William's initials, a detail that made my heart skip. Inside, I found a stack of handwritten letters, their edges yellowed but the ink still vivid. They were addressed to me, penned by Uncle William over years, never sent. Each one chronicled moments he'd watched me from afar at my high school art show where he stood in the back unnoticed, at my first gallery opening where he left before I could spot him. "I'm proud of you, Anna," he wrote in one, "for choosing your own path, even when it was lonely." His words were tender, heavy with regret for the distance he kept, believing it protected my independence. One letter, dated just weeks before his death, stood out. "Money is a splendid servant but a cruel master," he wrote. "Let it serve your vision, Anna, not define it." I read it again and again, tears blurring the page. It was as if he knew the weight of the wealth he'd left me and wanted to guide me through its traps. Those letters became my anchor, grounding me as I navigated the chaos of my new life. They revealed a man torn between duty and desire, a businessman who'd secretly poured his soul into art, just as I had. In the penthouse studio, I framed the $10 check from the will reading, hanging it beside a painting I'd done of Uncle William years ago. I'd caught him at a family gathering, gazing out a window, his eyes distant and thoughtful. Back then, I hadn't understood that look. Now I saw it as the weight of a life split between expectation and passion. Check, and the painting became my daily reminder. True worth lies in authenticity, not dollars. Every morning, as I worked on new pieces surrounded by his paintings and mine, I felt his presence urging me to stay true. The exhibition's success amplified this clarity. The gallery buzzed with praise, not just for Uncle William's hidden masterpieces, but for the Thompson Foundation's mission to uplift young artists. I poured more resources into the community programs, expanding workshops to include digital art for teens in underserved areas. One kid, Marcus, a quiet 15-year-old from East New York, showed me a digital portrait of his mother, its pixels glowing with love. I sent it to a local curator who offered him a spot in a youth showcase. Moments like that felt like Uncle William's legacy in action. The family, of course, kept circling. Aunt Susan sent a carefully worded email after the exhibition, suggesting a collaboration to honor William's memory through the company. I saw through it, a ploy to regain influence. David's latest move was subtler, cozying up to board members at Thompson hotels, hinting I was too artistic to lead. Mr. Harris, ever vigilant, tipped me off, and I began taking evening classes in corporate governance to sharpen my skills. I didn't need to run the company's daily operations. Uncle William had ensured a strong executive team, but I was determined to steer its vision responsibly. Emily's presence remained a bright spot. She'd started painting regularly, her work tentative but honest. During a late-night studio session, she laughed. "I'm terrible at this, Anna, but it feels like freedom." Our bond deepened, a quiet rebellion against the Thompson mold. Meanwhile, Ryan, my rock, challenged me to keep my art first, even as wealth pulled me in new directions. "Don't let the money paint your canvas," he'd say, half teasing, half serious. Standing in the penthouse after the exhibition, I traced the words of Uncle William's final letter. His faith in me wasn't just about the millions, it was about trusting me to live authentically. The $10 check, the unsent letters, his hidden paintings, they were pieces of a puzzle he'd left me to solve. I wasn't just his heir, I was his partner in rewriting what the Thompson name could mean. As I looked out over Manhattan's twinkling skyline, I felt ready, not just to carry his legacy, but to make it my own. The William Thompson, the Hidden Brush exhibition was a triumph. The gallery pulsed with energy as critics, collectors, and community members mingled, their voices buzzing over Uncle William's soulful paintings, my own evolving work, and the raw brilliance of the young artists we supported. Articles in the New York Times and local blogs hailed it as my sweet revenge story, but for me it was more than that. It was about living Uncle William's legacy, using his wealth to create opportunities, not to define who I am. Standing in the penthouse afterward, gazing at New York's glittering skyline, I felt the weight and the wings of his gift, a responsibility to wield power wisely and the freedom to shape success on my terms. Here are 5 lessons I've learned on this journey. First, authenticity is your greatest asset. Stay true to your passion, no matter the doubters. Second, wealth is a tool, not an identity. Let it serve your vision, not control it. Third, family doesn't always mean loyalty. Trust those who value you beyond status or money. Fourth, art has the power to heal and connect, bridging gaps that wealth alone can't. Finally, legacy isn't inherited, it's built through choices that reflect your values. Uncle William's $10 check, framed in my studio, reminds me daily that worth isn't measured in dollars but in courage and impact. I'm no longer the Thompson outcast. I'm Anna, a painter, a philanthropist, and a woman carving her own path. If this story resonates with you, hit that like button, share it with someone who needs a reminder to chase their truth, and subscribe for more stories of resilience and purpose. Join me in celebrating the power of authenticity, because your worth is so much more than what's in your wallet.